Will the RX 9070 XT beat the RTX 5070 Ti and save PC gaming? Will you be able to buy one at launch? And is there a massive flood of RTX 5090s coming in as leakers suggest? Welcome back to PC Builder, I'm Jason. All these questions and all your PC building questions coming right up in our February 2025 Q&A. If you get value out of this video, give it a like and of course subscribe for more cool PC content. Let's jump into it. This video is sponsored by VIP SCD Key. Say goodbye to crazy expensive Windows licenses and that terrible Activate Windows watermark. Right now, use the links in the video description, head over to VIP SCD Key and get a Windows 10 or 11 OEM license for a great price. Pick your product license, then use the PC Builder discount code PC25 for an additional 30% off during their Black Friday sale. Go to the activation settings on your PC, put in the code, and boom! Windows is fully licensed for a crazy low price. And Windows 10 can be upgraded for free to Windows 11. And they have Microsoft Office licenses too. Use the links in the video description. All right, we got Bacon Bits. Bacon Bits says NVIDIA claims that the 5090 stock is going to get better sooner than expected with their shifting production. Do I think it's an accurate claim? If so, when do I expect a more reasonable stock to be available? Well, first, let me just point out, that's actually not, NVIDIA didn't make that claim. A leaker named, I think it's like Mega Size GPU on Twitter, made that claim. Now, this leaker has been right about a lot of stuff, so I don't want to discount this. They're basically saying that NVIDIA has a lot of GB202, that is the die that goes in the RTX 5090, but also goes into the AI GPUs left over because as a result of declining AI GPU sales or cool off GPU sales, they're going to have a lot left over, so they're shifting that over to produce more RTX 5090s as a result of the whole DeepSeek, that's the Chinese AI startup that came out about a month and a half ago, kind of shocked the AI world, saying you don't have to spend $1 billion on NVIDIA hardware to train your large language model. We did it for like 50 or 60 million. All of a sudden, all these companies, we're going to spend like, billions and billions of dollars on AI GPUs are like, well, let's call a time on the field until we figure this out. So as a result of that, he's saying that scalpers are going to cry so hard. There's going to be so many 5090s only, and it's going to be here in a month. And even if NVIDIA decided to do that, it would take several months to get them here. So by the time that they package them, they send them off to the AIBs, they put them together as cards, they send them into the US, they ship them. It's just not going to, I just can't see that happening within a month. In our Best GPU for February 2025 video, where every month we take a look at the GPU market, we looked at the 40 series and how long it took the 4090 and the 4080 to come back in stock after they were sold out. And I think we were projecting September for 5090s to be regularly available. And I believe that was for MSRP. Check out that video. We go through the whole logic behind it and everything. And for the 4080, we said like 4 months. So whatever 4 months from January, I guess that would be like May or something, maybe May, June, in order to have them regularly available at retail anytime you want to buy one. Obviously, you can always get lucky through a drop or something like that. We're just talking about when were they regularly available to just grab whenever you decided you wanted to buy one, not have to use a stock tracker. So I'm going to take this with a heavy dose of salt. It would be fantastic if they've decided to do this, because to me, I don't want to see scalpers basically ruin the entire GPU market forever because NVIDIA has decided to shuffle off most of that production to AI. And in fact, a lot of people, we'll get into this a little later, the reason the 50 series has been so disappointing from an uplift perspective over the 40 series is because of AI, and they've gone all in with AI. So it would be kind of funny now if, because the AI market suddenly cools and is part of that bubble maybe bursting, that they're going to have to shift some production back to gaming GPUs. I would love for that to be the case. I'll believe it when I see it. We got tons of questions about the RX 9070 XT coming up. What's going to be a good value for it? What does it do versus the 5070 Ti? Let's start off with Jeff Jameson. Is the 9070 XT going to be worth it at $650 to $700? I don't know where you're getting that pricing, but I don't think that's going to be the price. I hope it's not the price. Assuming the leaks say it matches the 5070 Ti in raster and comparable in ray tracing to the 4070 Ti. And then Ick Monster, do I think the 9070 XT is going to be better value than the 7900 XTX at MSRP? Well, let's just throw the numbers up here. So these are the numbers that I projected before the 5070 Ti came out. We didn't have a 5070 Ti card. Unfortunately, we were supposed to get one, but they didn't receive the shipment in time. LOL, right? Kind of indicative of the entire RTX 50 series launch out there. We will have one soon, but I used the NVIDIA data to project it based on actual RTX 5080 and 5090 data and benchmarks that were out there from their launches. And I was pretty much bang on in terms of its performance. And again, let's just take a look at hardware in box, this is the 4K data, this is the 1440p data. 5070 Ti does not beat the 4080 Super, which is crazy to think about. Typically, the 70 class, not the 70 Ti, but the 70 class card usually beats the 80 class card by quite a bit. That was the case for the 3070 versus the 2080 Ti. Although, of course, nowadays you'd rather have the 2080 Ti because the 11 gigs of VRAM versus 8. That's a whole different topic though. So yeah, I was dead on about this, and it's looking largely the reason for the 5070 Ti and the 50 series failing to live up to expectations is because there's been no real architectural changes. You can change the marketing all you want. The performance is what it is. And there's been really no other uplift. They didn't go to a more advanced node. They stayed on the same process node, which you would normally consider really weird until you realize that's because they wanted to make as many AI GPUs as possible, because their problem wasn't that their AI GPUs weren't fast enough. The problem was they couldn't make enough of them. So staying on an older process node where they could get more production overall makes sense from a money-making perspective. That's why the 50 series, it has disappointed. Not to say that they're bad GPUs, and not to say that we won't recommend that you buy them, because 40 series does not exist at retail any longer, as we went over in our GPU market update. So these are the numbers, and we were bang on. But then you bring into the equation, what about the 9070 XT? I will say about the 9070 XT, the numbers I got here were not me making projections. They're just straight up from a leak from Moore's Law is Dead. I'll leave his video link down in the video description again. I would take them with a massive grain of salt, whereas I was able to calculate the 5070 Ti and 5070. Here, just wait until it doesn't beat the 4070 Super. People are going to kind of freak out. And it's basically the same price. People are going to freak out. I don't think NVIDIA is going to be able to consistently charge $549 for that GPU once everything comes into stock. Obviously, the first wave of stuff is going to sell out because the market is currently starved for GPUs right now. But the 5070 Ti, 135, if the 9070 XT comes in where he says it will, at a 4080 Super level, and it has ray tracing performance similar to the 4070 Ti Super, which is not that far away from the 5070 Ti, what would AMD have to charge? Well, obviously you can't get a 5070 Ti for $749, but let's pretend that you can. I said earlier when it was 7900 XT levels of performance with what we were talking about for the 9070 XT, that the most I could see them charging is $499, and I advise a price of $449. I would still do that. There's the business thing that AMD should do, but then there's also on the consumer, what's a good value side. They got FSR 4 coming. If they sell this thing for $500, it's a no-brainer. $250 cheaper with the same performance, and FSR 4 is going to be the equal of DLSS. I already think that FSR 3, which is just a software upscaler, right? It's not a hardware-dependent upscaler, at 4K is so close that you can't tell without pausing the video. And to me, if I can't tell in gameplay, then what do I care? Yeah, of course, if I pause the video, if I blow it up to 300%, like people do in comparisons, you can see small differences that I can't see when I'm actually playing a game. If that's already good enough, then FSR 4 to me is going to be really, really good. So I would go with the 9070 XT. That's me. Some people out there are like, oh no, they're so afraid to not buy something NVIDIA. Listen, I'm not here to force you to buy an AMD GPU or even buy the thing that I think is going to be the best value. We'll make build guides and we'll talk about the 5070 Ti if that's what you want to get, or the 5080 or the 5090 or the 5070. Even if I don't think that that's the best value card, we're here to support you. I want you to know that we are here to support you. But if you're asking my opinion, I would buy the 9070 XT if it's $500 for sure, instantly. Because if you think about it, for 50% less money, I think if I'm doing the math right there, right, you're going to get the same level of performance. That's money you put into something else. And it makes all kinds of different builds possible. Rather than, getting a 5070 Ti with a Ryzen 7600 CPU, you could get a 9800X3D instead. It's just things to think about, right? With the same budget, with the same PC budget, if you're building an all-new PC. And honestly, I think that AMD has a massive opportunity here to win back gamers in a way that they haven't had in maybe ever. I don't know if they're hungry enough to do it, but we'll see very soon. We're going to get more information on February 28th. All right, Jay Brinks wants to know, do I think the 9070 XT stock will last longer than an hour at Micro Center? I mean, the problem with the launches so far is that they've been effectively paper launches by NVIDIA, whether they've had production problems that they don't want to disclose, whether they were shuffling most of that off to AI instead. I've heard AMD has quite a bit of stock of 9070 XTs and 9070s. And we know that they've been at retailers since January because we've had all these leaked pictures of them sitting in back rooms at retailers because that's when the real launch was supposed to happen. But I also think that they're going to sell it pretty quickly. I don't know if they'll completely sell it on day one in the first hour. It's hard to say. Obviously, it's going to depend on where you're at. If you're in line at a Micro Center, I think you might have a good chance of getting one. But the market is starved for GPUs right now. 40 series sold out in January. Much of it sold out in December. Same with the 7000 series, all sold out. So really, what are your options? 50 series, well, nobody can find one of those, or the 9070 XT. And if you're wanting to build a new gaming PC, if you're like, oh my gosh, Jason, I bought a 9800X 3D and all these parts, or maybe a 7600X on sale, and I thought I was just gonna be able to pick up a 50 series GPU. This is why I tell you, never to wait for unannounced tech. And I feel sorry for you folks who got talked into waiting for 50 series, as though the 40 series stuff that was on sale during the Black Friday holiday shopping period was still gonna be there. It was not still going to be there. It was not. I knew this. That's why I was telling you to buy something in the fall. Don't wait for unannounced products. But, you know, we are in the situation we're at now. I think you probably have a good shot of getting the 9070 XT or 9070 if you follow our beat the bots methodology in terms of getting ready for it and doing all that stuff. I'll leave that video link down in the video description. Check it out. We'll walk you through how to kind of get ready and get all the hurdles out of your way so you're ready to buy something right away. I think you probably have a better chance of getting that than you did a 5070 Ti or 5080 or 5090. And yes, eventually I think stock levels will start to stabilize out there, especially with, you know, AMD hopefully producing quite a few of these things. So fingers crossed, but I do expect them to sell out because that's just the nature of the GPU market right now. We got a lot of questions about 40 series. Are they ever going to come back in stock? That's what Luke wants to know. And that's what Zant Smith wants to know. Luke wants to know, do I expect 4070 Ti Supers to ever come back in stock? Or are we just better off going with the next series? And Zant, basically same question about the 4090 below MSRP. Now, here's the thing. You can still find some listings for these cards. I know you can. They're typically like shipping from, you know, Hong Kong or somewhere like that. If you like, look at Newegg, they're from third-party sellers. They're not from the retailers themselves, and they're marked up at massively stupid prices. That's because there are a handful of these things out there, and they realize the shortage that we're in. So they're basically scalping last series cards. It's kind of crazy to think about right now. But no, I do not expect you to ever find a 4090 brand new below MSRP or anywhere close to MSRP, probably twice the MSRP. Same with the 4070 Ti Super. That is because these cards are gone. NVIDIA stopped producing them in the summertime, maybe even earlier for some of that. And they've been selling through the existing stock and they burned through it at this point. And they expected the 50 series to fill the gap. And again, it seems to me like NVIDIA either massively screwed up in their projections or they have some kind of production problems that they have not previously disclosed. Or again, they've shuffled all this stuff off to AI. It's hard for me to understand what exactly went wrong here, especially given the fact that there's essentially almost no uplift for this generation. But don't expect that 40 series to ever come back because they're making more money using the same silicon to now produce it as 50 series. They're just basically bigger number, better kind of thing. And they're just selling it like crazy for way more money than they were on the 40 series, which is just kind of hard to think about. Here's a great question. Anton DK, member, by the way, OLED monitors have dropped in price and they're still falling. How long do I expect that trend to last? So yeah, if you haven't checked it out, check out our best gaming monitor 2025 video. OLED gaming monitors, 1440p, 240 hertz, third generation panels that are either using the QD OLED technology or they're using the WOLED technology. That's the LG panel versus the Samsung panel, the third gen. They're like $500. And if you remember a year or so ago when those panels first came out, maybe about 18 months ago, they were $1,000. So that is a 50% price drop in not a lot of time. It's unprecedented, not just in monitors. I mean, imagine that happening for GPUs, right? That would be crazy. People would be losing their minds. I'd buy a 9070 XT and I'd throw the rest of my money in an OLED gaming monitor rather than buying a 5070 Ti, but I digress. How long is that going to happen? I think what we saw is there has been a massive overproduction in gaming monitors and they just needed to liquidate stock. The same monitor that is $499, you could actually get for $399 for the previous version of it, and some of the newer ones on Black Friday. I think they were just trying to clear out the last little bit of stock of that last generation monitor. For the current generation, I don't see that happening, and I think those older generation, for a second, generation OLED panels are going away. So I don't know. I think it's, again, massive overproduction, but it has forced down the prices of all gaming monitors, not just OLEDs out there. You can get a 1440p gaming monitor for $150. That's insane. You couldn't even do 1080p for $150 2 years ago. And now you're talking about mid-range 1440p LCD performance. And if you want to jump up to 240 hertz LCD, it's like $280. If you want to jump up to OLED, it's only $500. And I say only, I know that's more than some people can afford to spend on a monitor. A year or so ago, that class of monitor would have cost, oh gosh, $1,000 at least. It's just hard to kind of wrap your head around that massive price drop. They do have a cost that they have to, it's not like they can just sell them for cheaper and cheaper. They'll start losing money. And if they start losing money, they're gonna not make that monitor anymore. So I would buy a $500 27-inch 1440p 240 hertz QD OLED gaming monitor or WOLED gaming monitor in a heartbeat right now. They're amazing. They're absolutely amazing, and I don't think it's worth waiting for Black Friday. You'll probably get a slightly better deal, but then you'll have to wait like almost a year, and that to me is just, it's too long to wait, especially if you got a new GPU coming. All right, here's a question I've been wanting to answer for a while. Dark Ace, pairing my RTX 5080 Founders Edition, I guess that's fine, you got it for $999, right? With an Intel 14700Ks, I got one for $320 USD. I mean, $150 more, you could have gotten a 9800X 3D. So just saying that out there. Are the issues with the 13th and 14th gen fixed? From everything I've seen, it looks like, yes, they are probably fixed to the point where I'm now willing to recommend any of the locked Intel CPUs from 13th to 14th gen, so like the 14400, even the 14700F or something like that, that would be fine. I don't feel good enough about the 14900K, 13900K. I would still not recommend those CPUs. As long as you fully updated the motherboard, Intel says they're fixed. The data is kind of not really there to support that. So all I have to go off of is like, it looks like the number of people reporting this as an issue has completely dropped off a cliff. That's good news, but that's anecdotal. That's not really data driven. I would be able to recommend at this point, I feel like i5 14600K, 13600K, because they weren't really that implicated in it. But for the stuff that was, I think the i7s are right on the line, especially 14700K. It had those extra E-cores on them, so that ring bus was also kind of questionable on the E-cores. Definitely not for the 14900K, 13900K. That's where I'm at with it. If you want to go ahead and build your build with it, go right ahead. You're probably okay, but it's not like, yes, I know for a fact that that's going to be absolutely okay. I just don't feel comfortable. All right, Murad's got a great question we get all the time. Does CPU max memory speed matter for the RAM that you will buy? Since nobody mentions this, is it always the XMP profile? But the CPU max speed is never mentioned. What the heck's going on? So let's actually just jump in here. This is the 9800X 3D, but you can find this for any CPU. If you look under the specs, it'll say max memory speed 2x1R, 2x2R, and it says DDR5 5600. You're like, but Jason, if that's the maximum memory speed, how come you recommend DDR5 6000 CL30 RAM for a 9800X 3D? How does that even work? Well, first of all, it's weird. It is weird, and I will grant you that this is weird because AMD and Intel basically list this and say, if you clock memory faster than this, you have to do it through an overclocking profile, or you have to manually overclock it. And they always have a little bit language in there. If you overclock this and that overclocking results in damaging the CPU, it'll void your warranty. So this is kind of the dirty little secret in the PC market. And I honestly, I'm not really sure ever what to do about it, because as long as there have been PCs and as long as there's been XMP profile and overclocking profiles, we have overclocked our memory. And anytime there's been something wrong with the CPU, they should just change that CPU out for you, even if you had the memory overclocked on it. But there's always this like sword hanging over our head, which is this language that they use, and then they publish these max memory speeds. So what does all this mean? Number one, if you're building a PC, I recommend that you overclock the RAM using an XMP or DOCP, that's for DDR4 on AMD, or the EXPO memory profiles for the RAM kit. That's how you're going to get the best performance out. AMD and Intel have always honored those warranties. That being said, if you don't feel comfortable with that, then you could limit your RAM speed to DDR5 5600 and get a CAS latency as tight as you can. The rest of this stuff, 2x1R, 2x2R, the first number is the number of sticks. So 2 sticks by 1 rank We can talk about ranks later. 2 sticks or 4 sticks. So you can see 4 sticks of DDR5 is very hard on the memory controller because they're recommending a max speed of 3600. That's where it starts, and then you can try and overclock it. It's really hard to reach DDR5 6000 speeds overclocked with 4 sticks on the current memory controllers for either Intel or for AMD Ryzen. That's just because DDR5 is not as mature as DDR4 was, where we were doing this with 4 sticks all the time. So here's what I would tell you. I would say in reality, we end up ignoring these numbers anyway. I wouldn't worry about it voiding your warranty necessarily because it never has. And if this does become an issue, we'll just beat their door down basically the way we have in a lot of other things. So I'm not really worried about it. I don't think you should be worried about it. If you are worried about it, you can, of course, always limit your RAM to the max rated speed. Remember, if you got value out of this video, give it a like. This makes a huge difference to the channel, especially this guy right here who really appreciates it and slept through the whole thing again. And of course, subscribe for more cool PC content. Hey, did you check out our best GPU February 2025 buying guide? We go through the best GPUs to buy right now. We go through all the performance details that I talked about in this video and when things are actually going to get better. Check it out, and we'll catch you on the next one.